I asked you what your biggest watercolor questions were, and you answered. So today it is my turn to answer your questions. And we're just going to get right into it. They're incredible. Everything from how do I do a smooth background in watercolor to how do I set up a palette. And yeah, let's just do this. All right, let's do a tough one first. Y'all, this could be super interesting. Let me do. Yeah, that's about all we're gonna get. All right. Can you all see that? And the question is from Debbie Edwards. I'm not great with painting from photos, but I'm working on a painting of a nice hotel, and she wants to kind of get the glow. If you can see here, there's like blue lights on the front of this structure. And so her question was like, how do I get that glow? And I believe when I asked, well, do you want it to be an evening scene or daytime? Then yeah, she got back with daytime. So the first things first type of situation here is I'm looking overall at this image, right? And what I'm seeing very distinctively is that you've got this like glow, right? This blue hazy glow. So I want to establish that first in different values. So let's look back at that. All right, there it is. See that glow? Everything is kind of a shade of blue, like almost like you're seeing this structure through like a blue screen or a blue sheer window curtain, if you will, right? So my suggestion would actually be to start with blue. All right. So to start with some level of blue as your background. I'm just using a 3/4 inch wash brush. I just grabbed a blue. I'm using Fayesse paper, so that's just some of that kind of classic Fayesse sizing and consistency. All right. I would literally go in something like this. And then knowing that right around in here to the lower middle are the actual like glowy blue lights on the building. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that in there. I wish I had like one of my fluorescent blues right in front of me, but I don't, because that would have been nice. Just a little something more zingy, right? And then what I would probably do is do a little sketch, if you will. I would do a little pencil sketch. This is not a pencil. Get with it, Christy Rice. Let's just take one little look back at this. I would do a little pencil sketch of this structure. All right. All right. So I would do a little sketch. I'm going to just do the sketch off screen, but I want you to notice once I bring it back on screen, it'll make more sense. But a simple sketch is what we want. So let me bring this back over, and I'm going to show you kind of the, right? So something quite simple, so that when this background is dry, right, you can start going in, especially in the building structure. I almost feel like everything is going to be some version of blue. Like I'm mixing up brown and blue together to start roughing in the building, right? But it's still in the blue family. So this would almost become kind of a monochromatic situation. So this is what I would do. And then I would probably almost immediately start to intensify the sky a bit, because I want to make it very obvious eventually that this down here is snow. Okay. This stage at this point is where I would stop or slow the work and the strokes because it needs to dry. But this would be kind of your first weird, ugly stage layer. All right. But Debbie, this is where I would start for sure. And then you can start to build up. So it basically becomes a value study in so many ways. And the other thing I might suggest, and I'll just show you quickly, kind of prematurely, but I want you to see why I would do this. Because as you build up, you might feel the need to bring in some bleed proof white into the snowy kind of ridge here and bring back some of your whites. You might feel that need. Even some of it could be textural. That might really help things out. But traditionally speaking, I wouldn't do that until the end. All right, let's see here. What other questions we got? Now, someone asked about, let me put this one in. No, this is not the one I wanted. Maybe this one? No. And maybe this one. Okay, yes. Since we're talking about values a little bit, in this first situation that I addressed, I thought, well, let's transition into value on a little bit more of an in-depth level. Okay. So Erica, are you here? Are you here, my dear? Erica asked, can you go into values a bit? I understand the theory of color values, but it seems to have I seem to have a hard time applying it. And I said, absolutely. I asked for subject matter and she said figs. So let's first do this. Let's take that same blue. Okay. We need to get that blue going. And we're going to do a little bit of a value study, right? Some of you have probably heard like creamer, coffee, tea, the whole thing. So paint a square, that is basically like, I guess this one would be like creamer. I think of it more like maple syrup, whatever. It's a lot of paint, not as much water. The ratio of paint is extremely high. And then you want to do another little rectangle. Please don't worry about it being perfect like I am right now. And that one's not too much different. So I'm going to lift a little so that you want to have this like graduated scale. You're basically making a value scale with one color. And that's all you really need. You don't need a scale that has so many colors to understand this concept, right? You don't. Okay? And then there's more to the story. So just hang tight. I'm going to do a couple more of these. And the next one, the ratio, as you go, the ratio of water to paint increases, right? And watercolor, traditionally speaking, because we're not necessarily adding white, although I do, to make something lighter, we're adding water. So literally in these last three, all I did was dip my brush in water again. That's all I did. And then it gets difficult because even this one, it's not much lighter than the previous. So it needs a little zhuzh. So I find that when you get into the lighter, sheerer application of watercolor, basically your lighter values, it can get tricky because there's just a different level of nuance in how much paint and to water ratio you need to make that distinctively different next step in the scale make sense. Gosh, I hope that made sense. So like you just notice I had to work a little harder to get the difference from here to here. And the same is going to go to get the difference from here to here. So this is kind of your first step in starting to understand color value versus just doing a value scale with pencil, if you will. All right. So with figs and the way that I've been known to paint figs, it gets tricky because traditional watercolor begs you to start light and sheer. So on this end of things, and I don't always tend to do that, but for today's purposes, I'm going to. So lots of water, not lots of paint. So remember your ratios here. You've got increasing levels of water, right? And over here, it's increasing levels of paint. That makes sense. So I'm going in to start my fig here with, I'm on this end of the spectrum. All right. The other thing about maintaining your distinct values is patience. And I know you don't want to hear that, but patience, because right now everything's damp. In here, I would say it's even wet. Okay, so because I am not terribly patient, I had to develop a technique to accommodate that called contrast detailing. And in that time, things started to dry. And it's where you bring in this end of the value scale in terms of intensity of paint early on, but just on the edges, right? So maintaining your values, though, truly, you want to develop that keen sense of patience, or you could overwhelm things very quickly, very easily. So I'm going in really dark here, but notice just touches. Now I know I really should leave it alone unless I were going to add like a little bit of like yellow in here. Just a little. That's safe at this stage, traditionally speaking. But yeah, with watercolor, maintaining those color values, of course, first and foremost, let's for sure understand, water control, what different levels of water does, what different levels of water do. And you can already see it getting murky there because I'm just playing too much. So I'm glad I actually did that. So I need to get out of there. Patience. So yes, you need an understanding of this stuff, the value scale. Okay. You need to feel the value scale happen under your hand. You need to make one, right? But then you need patience. I can't spell. Patience. Patience. Let stuff dry. All right, was this helpful? Let me know. I know, it's not in my DNA either. I know, it's not. So let me know if that was helpful. Yay. All right, let's see if I can have a nice smooth transition into the next question. Let's do one of the video questions. I love this one, and I have an example that I want to use to show you my suggestion for it. Speaking of this flower, would you all please go and watch the video I put out last week? Because the way that the algorithm works is if your regular viewers don't show interest in a video, it doesn't get pushed out to new viewers. It's only a 5-minute video, and I know you probably didn't watch it, as many of you didn't watch it because you knew the shtick, but if you could watch it, that would be fabulous, because then that will trigger YouTube to go ahead and show it to other people. All right, the next question.
I want to know the best way to do uniform backgrounds with watercolors.
And this was from Lavina. Good, you were able to hear it. Lavina asked how to do a background, how to do an even background. And so this is not even, I'm about to challenge myself, but I think it's good. This is from that video I just spoke about. It is a 5 Below paper, cellulose, but not even that textured. So almost like a cellulose hot press, which could not be a worse option for this, but we're going to roll with it. We're going to roll with it. All right. But you can see what's happening here. So I painted with water, not a lot of water first. And see, it's doing that awful thing, little pills. See that? All right. And then I added blue to my brush. And this is already starting to dry. Not too shabby though, because we kept the painted water, we kept it consistent across the surface. So let me show you over here. Let's do another section. All right, so I'm just painting on clean-ish water. You can see the pilling, because this paper is not meant for this. But when I tell you to use what you have, this is why, because you can still, I mean, look at it's pretty smooth. Getting a little sizing weirdness up here. Right? And then we're going to grab the blue, a little bit more, a little bit less. And I won't say this is dry brush. This is like a damp brush. All right. And when I make a stroke, I make it across the entire width or surface of the area I'm trying to fill, because I don't want brush strokes left behind. I want it as smooth as possible. Now, if you're doing this on arches, or if you're doing this on, say, Academy, it's going to feel significantly more effortless than this. But this isn't too shabby for cellulose paper. Absolutely no cotton content. So the key here is paint it in with water. Have more going on the page so you don't have as much white space. You can fill the sections in smaller. And use an even kind of long stroke sweeping kind of approach if you can. Now, I will say this. Yes, someone mentioned it. You could do masking fluid where you paint the background first and you've masked out the flowers or whatever it is you don't want painted over with that background color. So you could do that. Another technique, it could have worked here except for the white. The white would have had to have been added back in if I were to do what I'm about to explain. Paint your background first, no masking, paint your flower over it. That's going to obviously affect the overall colors of your flower. And if you wanted the white in, you'd have to put it back in with something, gouache, acrylic, so on and so forth. Yep. Hopefully that was helpful. All right, perfect. So we've got, let's do this one. we're gonna remove that one and we're gonna add this back in. Okay. How do I paint loosely from a photo? What to eliminate, what to include? Oh my word. Yes. Dear Lord, yes. So we want a realistic photo. We want, obviously, a photo is realistic. It's a photo of a thing that exists in real life. You know what I'm saying. Okay. So we need that, which means I kind of need this phone. All right. Let's see what I got in my photo magic here. Let's do the swan. I've got some pretty epic swan photos from um, Chantilly, Chateau de Chantilly. And I think it could be a good lesson in simplifying. So I'm going to use my 1/4" dagger, Queen Bee. Yeah. All right. I got so close to her. It was insane. That's a good one. All right. So, like, oh my gosh, there's all these feathers. There's all this. First thing I would do is probably sketch her out. Again, I'm going to the blue. I would probably start, and again, the question was about like, how do we paint loose? What do we keep? What do we eliminate? I would get these basic shapes in because not only are we keeping them, they're kind of integral to making this look recognizable, right? I would get the head in. I would kind of get this weird rectangle situation. And then I would like, where do these feathers, like, what does the grouping of the feather look like? I don't care about the individual feathers, not one bit. I want to know, like, what shape, if I had to pick one shape, what would that shape be? So it's kind of like a weird wing, like teardrop, right? So first things first, sketch. And you know, if sketching with a pencil makes you nervous, like it does not have to be a pencil. You can sketch with that super light end of the spectrum value of your color. So light color, sheer color. All right. Okay. Now you can get into, this is extra fun because it's a white bird. So let's get in some loose grass. Let's not even worry about what the bird looks like. And the thing with loose paintings is you're only including, I mean, I'm not saying this is a rule, but the way I approach it is I'm only including the most important shapes, the most important shadows, the most important colors. Okay. So let's break it down. The grass is extremely important because it gives structure and shape to the swan's body. The blue back here also so important because it's going to, again, give structure and shape to the body. Now, you might not feel comfortable getting into that blue as soon as I am. I'm not even sure if I'm comfortable, but we're going to try. All right. So we're going to get some of that in. Only what's most important, necessary to get these shapes, to wrangle these shapes into something that looks like the thing that you're trying to paint for the love. All right. You're looking back at your photo reference, sure, but it's not gospel, right? So getting on the orange, super important. So I'm just going to get right in there. I'm noticing that it's kind of coming up around the face. I brought it out too much. And then later on, we will adjust with a little bit of black pen somewhere, right? Now, she's got like a yellow neck. Do I want her to have a yellow neck? Not really. So I'm going to ignore that part. I'm actually going to ignore that part. Now, I'm grabbing me a black pen, maybe. There it is. All right. I want to get this in. Trying to look at the measurements here, where the eyeballs should be. Now, this black pen is not at all especially juicy. And that's going to bode well for me with what I'm trying to do. And remember when I said I went out here a little too far, but I'm going to just deal with that later. So I'm kind of just like scrubbing in these black details tentatively, if you will, right? Yes, what to include from a photo. Only what is absolutely necessary to get the impression of this across. Now, I saw a little blue marker. I sometimes will do stuff like this where I'm trying to edit the shape, like his head actually is a little too tall. So I'm going to come in, watch this little tricky doodle here. This could feel a little scary, but this is where I start to take liberties and I love it. It allows me to edit. Number one, that cuts in a little more. And then that's pretty stocky neck. That neck is stockier than I would have surmised. And also just a little bit too much for my own personal preference. So I am making it less stocky. And then knowing that my blue pen is water soluble, I am using that to my advantage. I'm just going to blend it out, make it textural if I want more water on there. And yes, there was green on that brush. Did I know it for sure? Not for sure, right? But only add what's necessary in terms of the structure. And once you have that, oh my gosh, that's a swan, then you can embellish, which is exactly what I'm doing now. Because I feel like I've got a good handle on that's recognizable as a swan moment. So now I can go in, make a little suggestion of the flare in that swan's feather. Same thing back here. Whoop, my brush is awfully dry. It's like we're cutting in from the water and then scrubbing out, but only what is necessary. So I'm going to go in here because again, I've got that structure down to a place where I'm reasonably happy with it. I mean, is it perfect? The perfect loosey-goosey interpretation of this? No, but it's really nice. I'm pleased. I cut into that top feather too much. It's okay. But there she is. And we might even do a little bit of soften that out a little bit. But that is a great way to get into a loose watercolor. That watercolor sketching, I've got a gray pen here. I'm kind of feeling it. There's some fun, like little textural, like overlapping of the feathers here that I think is actually super pretty, just from a decorative standpoint. Come in here just to edit that a little bit and add a very loosey, you said it now, I can't stop saying it, loosey goosey outline. I think I like that. So it's in the beginning, it's include only what you really need. But as you get into it, once you've established that structure, it's like all bets are off. Include what you want to make it fun. Mm? Mm. All right. How are we feeling about that? Was that helpful? This needs to come out a little bit. Let me know. Let me know. Any additional questions inspired by that situation that we just went through? What is essential is invisible to the eye. And Ross, that's such a great quote, because what I sometimes often feel like what's most essential once the painting is done reveals itself. And it is those moments that I added towards the end. But I still think we need to start with a little bit of structure. Yes, the shadows really can make things really pretty and interesting. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, that was a fun one. They're all fun. Who am I kidding? Let's do, oh, right. I've been painting with watercolor for about 4 years and would like to create a bouquet on larger paper that I've used before, maybe an 11 by 14. This feels a little intimidating. So wondering if I should practice painting flowers on scraps and then use the good paper when I feel more ready. Oh, my Lord. Okay. So here's the thing. Goodness gracious, the idea of like, use the good paper when I'm, ready, when I'm qualified enough, whatever it may be. Like, I struggle with that kind of mentality because, well, for obvious reasons, because it creates this sense of fear in our paintings. So, but is there anything wrong with sketching, practicing first? Absolutely wrong. Absolutely not. Practice is only as good as how much freedom it teaches you. So if your practice becomes a means to never using the good stuff, to never feeling like you're accomplishing a finished painting, then there's something going on with the practice. And who knows, maybe just some of your past experiences with art. All right. So, yes, what I would actually suggest is do a couple warm-up exercises on scraps, just something that has nothing to do with the intended subject matter. So, nothing about the intended subject matter. Okay. And then I want you to do a small scale compositional sketch, not a large one. So I want you to stay away from trying to create the final look of your painting as practice. Your practice should be warm up. It should be sketches on a smaller scale, but that's about it. That would be my suggestion, if that makes sense. Okay. So your sketch could be something like this, just a small area. You want maybe, to create your rectangle, or if you're working on, you said rectangle. So sketch out a little rectangle. Maybe you know that you want cabbage roses and that you really love cabbage roses. So think about your focal point, right? Think about that focal point, what it's going to be. Don't get too detailed. Think about your stems all kind of converging. If it's a bouquet, traditional bouquet, like I'm holding the bride's bouquet type of situation, right? Do you want it centered? Do you want it off center? I typically do. When I do bouquets, they typically tend to be centered. because then they just look like cute little portraits. You may want to decide, do you want some stuff cascading? So get a sense of that in there, right? Do you want it to go all the way off the page and like a full bleed? Or do you want it to stay kind of off the edges, right? Those are the type of things that you are working out, okay? Those are the type of things you're working out. Just so that you don't go to the quote unquote good paper feeling, underprepared, if you will. And I mean, you could get a sense of like, okay, maybe a ranunculus there, the cabbage rose is here, it's the focal point. Maybe up here, I'll do a spray rose, like a side view, spray rose, right? Maybe over here is some silver dollar eucalyptus. Like you could plan out your clusters and see how they feel in terms of like, they've got that like swaggy feel that you want maybe on this side. But I don't want you feeling like you have to get 5 or however many 11 by 13 or whatever the size was that you mentioned. Let's say 9 by 12. It's just a classic rectangle size. You've got to get like 5 of those and you've got to paint 5 to finish before you're ready to do that same thing on the good paper. Because what that creates is a mental loop of fear. And a feeling of inadequacy. See, I don't know how to spell that. Inadequacy. Okay. It is this very strong mental loop. So you paint 9 by 12 number 1. You just, it's a disaster. You paint 9 by 12 number 2. You're really feeling it this time, but there's that one flower that drove you nuts. Every next full practice painting you paint, your ability to pick out your own errors, missteps, imperfections is going to get stronger. That's all you're learning in those steps. That's all you're learning in doing it this way. Okay. Now, is there anything wrong with taking, maybe a scrap that's like a business card size or even a 3 by 5 and doing a quick study of just the cabbage rose? No, that quick studies are going to be better for your mental health in my estimation. All right. But full-blown paintings, one after another. Because let me tell you, you're not even going to get to number 5. You're going to get to like number 3 1/4, and you're going to be like, this sucks. I'm tired. I'm done. Okay? All right. How does that sound? Any other questions on that particular topic? All right. Let's watch one of these videos. Here we go. Chloe.
It's Chloe. My question is, what's a good watercolor brand that I could get starting out that has a good split primary set of tubes? And also, I was wondering if you could show me how you how you um how you label and set up your half pans in your palettes.
Love it. I got so excited when I saw Chloe's question come through. So let me first address the split primary question. I'm wondering if I gave it away because I don't know why I would have. I don't think I did. So the brand Blocks, how's it spelled? Split primary. I purchased from, I think I got it on Jackson's. I got it. Where is it? blocks. Now, I know you wanted tubes, but they make tubes. So, first off, I would say, like, because blocks is incredible. I actually really love their paint quality. But if you are not set on, how the heck do we spell this? BLO. If you're not set on tubes, I'd recommend half pans because it's going to be more affordable. BLOCKX. Okay. Blocks, split primary. It came in the cutest little, just European style travel palette. It was like an all-in-one, ready to go, ready to rumble situation. But look at this. I wonder, do they not make it anymore? Uh, Okay, so this is the brand. And I had mine, and I thought it was just so well done because it wasn't just, I mean, your split primary, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got like warm red, warm blue, cool blue, warm green, cool green, and then I think yellows. And then what blocks did was that they added like two neutrals. They added like a sepia and like a burnt, maybe it was a burnt umber, which I thought was a nice addition. Um, oh, that's a fun trend. Oh, very nice. Okay. So that's why I loved their kind of approach to the split primary. Right, that's a palette of 81 shades. Gosh, do they not have it anymore? Anybody aware of that set that I'm talking about? Blocks. I tried to look this up or find mine for another question that was asked and couldn't. Yeah, so here's another explanation, two versions of each primary, and which is great, but I love that the block set added the neutral, like the browns. Let's take a look. We love Poems About You. Now they're doing a 12, so she's got an alizarin lake, quinacridone magenta, a vermilion, Helios red, cerulean, ultramarine dark, indanthrone, blue, Prussian blue, lemon yellow, cad yellow, gamboge, and brilliant yellow. So think about it. Now this is interesting because she's got more going on here. This is a bigger set. I would probably swap these for something in the brown family. So that would have been my recommendation, but it almost looks like they don't make it anymore. Sketches. Yeah, sketches. Do you have any colors, any specific color names that you like? Like for like what are your favorites for a warm red and a cool red and a warm, if you want to share, and if anybody else wants to share, I am not like a huge like split primary user. Um, you know, strictly speaking, like I don't use it strictly. So Daniel Smith has a split primary tube set. I would just say whatever you choose. I love Daniel Smith. You can't go wrong with that brand, Chloe. I would just get yourself a brown in there and also even some kind of magenta or rose, opera pink, if you're not, worried about light fastness. Although who was working on Izzy Watercolors is working on a crazy beautiful, bright, dare I say, hot pink that is light fast. So go check her out. Rosa may have one. Yes. Someone says English red. So I know that wasn't the greatest answer to your question because I'm not like a big split primary gal, but you know, we're getting somewhere. Okay, here we go. We've got lemon yellow for the cool, new gamboge for the warm. Love that. Love that. Here's sketches. Wonderful. Chloe, screenshot this one right here. Love, 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 love it. Now, sketches, would you also recommend 2 editions? Like, because if I just painted with these, I'd feel a bit lost. I would without some rosy, zingy pink and some type of, I would probably opt for a warmer brown of some sort. Yeah, this is awesome though. Good. Yeah, magenta. Yeah. I think you mean alizarin crimson. Yep. Love that. Tonic does have that tonic set. Do I have that here in arm's reach? I don't know if I do. I have the tonic set, and that is also split primary. It's just so much paint. I don't know if they've come out with the one in just half pans yet. Yay, Chloe, you come to the right place. Now, let's get on to the question that I can answer for sure. This is a good, now this isn't the most well-kept, organized palette, whatever. But it really, at a glance, shows you how I don't know why those are stuck down there. How I address building a palette, where I start, where I end, kind of a thing. Now this one is a little different, actually. It's good enough. Okay, so first things first, hopefully we can see this. Yes. So when I build a half pan palette from tubes, I make sure now I use black Sharpie only because the color Sharpies fade too quickly. I put the brand name on the one long side, or if it fits on the short side. And then I put, this is Hansa yellow hue, I'm guessing with my H period, Hansa yellow hue. I put the color name on the other side. I don't just do color numbers because I'm a lazy girl. I don't want to have to look it up later on. So brand, color name, okay? I put a magnet. There's a magnet down there. You can't see it. Can't see it yet. Almost. I put a magnet in there so it holds on. They don't rust. Check out my Amazon shop. I have like all my Amazon favorites. It's like an affiliate shop. I've used so many different brands of the teeny tiny magnets. Nothing's ever rusted. Then what I do for setup, I like mine butted right up next to one another in an open palette style like this, and even in like my Christy Rice palettes that have the tray that snap in. I like them butted right up. If you use bigger brushes, you may want to build in, quote unquote, build in some margin in between the half pans so that when you get a bigger brush in there, you're not automatically double dipping. Whereas if you put a bigger brush here, you're double dipping. Oh, hi. So you put a bigger brush here and you've got pans right next to each other, you're essentially double dipping, which is not a bad scene, right? But if you give yourself some margin in between, I really dirtied that up. But anyway, the point is you're not double dipping as easily. I mean, you'd really have to work hard to double dip with those spaces in between. All right. So that's that. The color order is I start with my yellows. I go into my reds. I go into my pinks. Typically, this is a weird, I did like a stair step thing. I think I thought I was being cute, but I don't mind it terribly because I actually like the placement. But typically it would be yellows all the way across into my reds, all the way across, pinks, then getting into purples, all my purples, then getting into blues, then getting into greens. Let me see if I can find a better example of that. because I think I was being super cute with that palette. I'm not sure why. I think my Holbeins are a better, oh my gosh, my Holbeins are a hot mess too. Well, it's as good as an opportunity as any to fix them up a little bit. I used a very different, I just spilled dirt all over the floor. That's great. I used a very different magnet in these, and the magnets gave way and didn't work well, but this is my Holbein set. The magnets don't hold, so when the pans get wet and I close the lid, they pop out, and it's super frustrating. So, just a project for another year. You belong there. Don't ask me how I can remember all this, but I can. So there we go. Pinks, purples. All right, here we go. Actually, these don't belong down here. They belong up here. And that does not belong there. It belongs there. All right. So this is going to give you a look, real good look at how I organize what I just described. All right. And that pink, I think this fell out at one point. Again, these, don't ever buy the stick-on magnets. They're like a sheet that you can cut up. I thought it was such a great idea. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. No, no, don't do it. Terrible, terrible plan. Highly do not recommend. These don't belong here. These belong down here. Yeah, because if you can't tell how many times this silly palette has gotten overturned, well, then you're blind. But luckily, with most of my palettes, I have somewhat of a photographic memory. And you don't belong there. It's like I'm playing what's that game where you slide around the numbers all over the place? What is that game? I forget. Anyway, okay. So I do not have a lot of neutral browns in this set, but okay. So you can see here pretty clearly. Yellows into peaches. Now Holbein is special because they've got a lot of peaches. So yellows, orangey peaches, and I forgot to mention that with the other one, whatever. So yellows, peachy oranges, reds into pinks, pinks into, here I did pinks into, no, I did it into purples, and then into blues, into greens, and then at the end I would do blacks, whites, anything that was gray, browns. That is my typical layout. I am kind of like a wild animal though with my palettes. I am not super exacting. I never have been. As you can see, I've experimented with so many different ways of adhering. And I've, obviously like, look at, I decided I had to retrofit the good magnets when these type of magnets stopped working. But this is the general gist of that. Hopefully that was helpful. I am using your paints, but I had some tubes and put them in a plastic tray, which I left open, and they are like rocks. Barbara, that is an excellent question. They just need to be sprayed with water. Watercolor from tubes is meant to cure. So basically it's meant to dry out once it's outside of the tube. I don't recommend using watercolor straight from the tube anyway, especially if you're a beginner. You can tend to use way too much paint too quickly. So it is meant to cure. So let me try to, can you hear this? You ready? Hard as a rock, right? But then you spritz. You let it sit for a little longer than I'm obviously, and then you paint. So all is well. All is well. You're good. You've done nothing wrong. You're supposed to close that lid. You're good. All right. All right. All right. Let's do another video. All right, here we go. Here we go.
Hi, Christine. This is my question. I painted these 3 pink flowers, and I was just messing around when I did it, but then I really liked it, and I feel happy every time I look at them, but I want to paint the background, and by looking on the color wheel, I should paint it green, I guess. I'm not real fond of green. I'm just wondering what you think, like with a light blue background. I mean, I think it should be definitely something lighter than the flowers, you know, like a light, maybe turquoise even. I don't know. Just give me your opinion. I'm just stuck. I need help. Thank you so much.
I love that question so much. Okay, so I did a little version of my own. Mine's a little more intense, so we're gonna do that. So let me just speak to the theory, the color theory mention. Okay, first, so you've got so many options with this idea of a color wheel. Let me pull out the color wheel. I just happen to have one in the beginning of each of my watercoloring books. So, easy peasy. All right. So she mentioned, well, according to the color wheel. So we do know that colors opposite each other on the color wheel are definitely complementary. They're called complementary colors, but they're not the only colors that look good side by side or with each other. They do, traditionally speaking, look really nice side by side. But we've got analogous colors that look fabulous together. We've got there's all sorts. There's all sorts. What do we got? Tertiary colors look fabulous together. So what would a tertiary be? Like these 3? Is that a tertiary? These. So if you had red or pink, right? Little oranginess, a little aquaness, right? That could look really lovely. All right. So don't feel tied down to colors opposite on the wheel being the only thing that looks good together. Because you said, I don't really love green. So something you could do to work this out in a much more like real way is just put a little splotch of something similar to the pink from your painting. And then let's do a little we could do a little aqua-ish, turquoisey. Do we like that? Okay. Do we like a blue? You had mentioned a blue. I think a blue could be just lovely. That's a little bright. I know you said you wanted it light. Now, I'll be honest, if it were me, I would probably go bolder, but that's just me. So let's get these really light because you're going to have to go really light to be lighter than this, right? So let's lift these out. You're going to have to go really light. Okay, so we've got a nice blue. We've got a nice green. You could go somewhere in the like orangey, salmony area and do more tonal, meaning analogous. You're kind of like, well, tonal is more white mixed in, but you could go analogous because pink, red, orangey red next to each other on the color wheel, right? That could be really lovely. Wildflower says lately her best background colors have been discovered by testing swatches on scrap paper. Color theory is great, but sometimes intuition can't be beat. I couldn't agree more. Yes. Nice little side convo going on here. Single pigment colors really do give you the cleanest mixes. Yep. Love that. All right. So do yourself a little swatches. All right. I mean, I personally love the green. This one is like turquoisey. And I know if it were me, I would probably add some hint of leaves, but I know you also said you didn't really want leaves. But I'm just going to show you what would Christy do. Nothing too crazy. And then I really loved this salmon-y color. So I would leave a margin in between my flowers, right? Going really light, leave a white margin. So don't bump that salmon-y color right up next, because we need it to pop somehow a little bit, right? I feel like we want it to pop. Now, it's not going to be like in your face pop because these colors are soft. But let's just do this little section. I'm okay with that little bleeding going on. Let's pick up some of this paint and bring it down here. Now, see how pretty that is? Really nice. Sketches said, I don't intentionally follow the color wheel. That said, when you look at the complementary colors, you can look at the tint. Yes, so a tint is plus that color plus white or plus black. So aqua would work if you wanted to stick to it. Yes. Lovely. So hopefully that answers your question. We could even go a little more aqua because I know that my fluorescent mixed with blue makes a stunning aqua. So let's see what that's looking like. Mm-hmm. That's nice too. Really light. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, aqua's nice. Aqua's nice. Mm-hmm. All right, so hopefully that helps. Great question. Love it so much, so much. That color wheel has come in handy over the years more times than I can count. Okay, we had a question about gouache, and I want to address that from Becky. Becky, are you here? Are you here?
Hello, Christy Rice. I am one of your new groupies, and I have learned to find joy in watercolor thanks to you. I'm brand new at it, and I hope this question isn't too basic, but
Nope.
I love the word gouache, and I want to know everything about gouache. When to use it, how's it different from paint, and different colors of gouache, and just all things gouache. Please tell me about gouache. Thank you.
I love this video. I'm going to tell you all the things about gouache. Okay. So getting into this, gouache is essentially a thicker, well, let me retract that, a more opaque watercolor. It's water soluble. It reactivates after it's dried to a complete stone, which is why I brought this out. It will reactivate. All right. Now, the thing with gouache is, sure, it reactivates easily. You can see it's more opaque, right? But I find gouache to be best, in my humble opinion, when taken straight out of the tube. So what you see here in my crazy palette is just me squeezing out small amounts, and obviously not small enough because I really like to not use reactivated gouache, because especially for my last layers of my gouache painting, I really like thickness. Okay. So now that being said, let me just do a little, I am not a gouache expert, but I do thoroughly enjoy it. And I will say, I find gouache to be incredibly, it feels really good to use gouache when you've been going at it hard and heavy with watercolor for quite a while. All right. So with gouache, you typically start out more sheer, lighter layers, okay? Lighter layers, but darker colors. So you start darker. It's the opposite of watercolor. So you're like, wait, what? See, notice these are still sheer. I'm not applying the gouache thickly yet. There's a lot of water in these mixes, but this is a lot darker than starting out like here, right? Or here in a watercolor painting. So thin layers to begin, thin, but you can be darker. All right. You don't have to, but you certainly can. Okay. And then as you move on, you build up the thickness of the paint that you're applying to the point that you're getting to the end of the painting and you're adding details. Now this is dry out here, but you're adding details that are still very much visible, even though they're lighter, they're still very much visible because the paint is so thick. Does that make sense? The paint is so, oh, I keep using the wrong word, opaque. All right. So with gouache, you need to know reactivates with water. Okay. You need to know just the general quote rule, sheer and darker start, build up to thicker highlights. Anybody else have anything they want to add about gouache? And on top of that, I prefer to work from the tube. So I really like to squirt out what I think I'm going to need. I have that nice wet paint. And then especially in my last layers, I can apply it very heavily. Thick coverage. So much easier to do straight out of the tube rather than with reactivated, cured gouache chunks. Okay, I see others who also prefer it from the tube. What the heck did I do? Gouache 101, like opaque watercolor, either activates with water, you can layer, but remember, if you add watery layers, yes, it dries matte. Yes, so you will reactivate underneath, which can be, the same can be said for watercolor. However, we're typically not applying thicker layers of watercolor unless you're me. But yes, so if you are applying super watery layers on top of, not even super, if you're applying a watery layer, you're trying to on top of a thicker layer, you're going to, everything's going to just kind of start to mush together, essentially. Which is why your final layers are typically applied in a way that doesn't require a lot of friction, right? And is more highlight, less brush strokey, highlight, dots, things like that, right? I mean, this is all damp still, so very easy to reactivate, but yeah, not a lot of friction in those final layers. I have a gouache video that you can check out on this channel. I followed another artist, a gouache artist tutorial, and you can see this idea of thin layers to thicker layers in action. And you can see that painting had, I think, about 4 layers maybe. So yes, thank you, sketches so much. Yes, you can use it to cover mistakes. Yes, and it looks amazing on black paper. Yeah, Japanese watercolors are more opaque, but you're not going to get that final thick layer to be as punchy and contrasty with Ganzi Tambi as you would traditional gouache. Very good. Gouache has a drying shift. Light colors dry darker, dark colors dry lighter. Yep. Love that. Yes, acrylic gouache was designed for graphic designers who scan their artwork traditionally after they paint it, and they didn't want that kind of shine or sheen that was creating a lot of weirdness in the final scan. Very, very matte, but it doesn't reactivate. Love that. Love it. All right, hopefully that was helpful. Definitely check out my gouache videos here. There's only a few, but that one that I did, that live one was, I think I did that live. That was fun, and you get to see me really work through a traditional approach to gouache painting because I was following someone else's tutorial. Can't really do glaze. No, no glazing. I mean, no, because you're building up opacity. You're starting with those thinner layers, and the ultimate goal is to build up thickness. So that in turn is building up opacity. So you're getting your highlights and everything from contrast, thickly applied final layers, details, and the contrast they provide. Whereas glazing for oil painters and watercolor painters is about sheer layers over and over and over again with dry time in between. And you're not going to get that luminosity. The luminosity that you get from gouache paintings, I'm sure we've all seen them. They look like, where the hobbits live, and you've got glowy lanterns and like that kind of classic subject matter that you see with a lot of gouache tutorials. You're getting that glow, but it's more from the contrast of the final moments added with your lightest colors. Here's sketches. I wouldn't glaze with gouache. You could do it. Yeah, you're just going to be a lot of reactivation going on, and it's going to your risk of things getting muddy is just through the roof. Yeah. Shanehan, yep, has a pan, has a gouache watercolor hybrid. It's lovely. Yep. All right, let's see what else we have here. All right, we did Diane, we did Becky, Lavina, Chloe. We need to do Gwen.
Christy, I'd like to know how you paint so fast. I can't keep up with you. How do you do it so fast and so well?
Oh, thank you.
Is there some way for you to slow down so I can keep up?
I'm so bad. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Gwen. The color I was just using, that peachy color, this is Holbein gouache, and it's called Pale Coral. That was the last one I was using, I believe. So to answer this question, could I slow down? I think I could. I definitely recommend, if you feel like my tutorial pacing goes too fast, is to, number one, watch the video all the way through first. So let's talk about this. If Christy is too fast, I'm going back to my retail days with all the if then statements. Then, okay, so number one, watch the tutorial through. Don't paint. All right. And then you're going to watch it again and follow along. Okay. Yep. Number two, pause. Thank you, sketches. Pause. A lot. Okay. Number three, when I am in the last year and a half, my content has gone from more step by step. I still do step by steps, but to inspirational. Whereas I'm teaching you more how to think than I am teaching you how to apply specific brushstrokes, where, when, how, and all the things. So if you're watching my older tutorials, I can understand this too fast thing, because I get a lot of that feedback. So it's made me realize that I tend to go quick. So there's that. But back to this inspirational versus tutorial, like, I would rather you watch my step by step, even if it feels too fast, right? And be inspired by what I'm doing, and then go your way. Make changes, whether they're pre-decided or just happen because you can't necessarily keep up. Like, embrace the speed as a creative, like as creative fuel. Does that make sense? Creative fuel. All that said, I will definitely take it into consideration to do some slower step-by-steps. I will say this, my Patreon exclusive video that I put out monthly is in real time, and might that style might work better for you. So if you're not already in Patreon, you have questions, let me know. We just decreased the price by over 75% for our most valuable tier. It's only $9 a month now. So just saying. All right. So did I get it all? We got that. So hopefully this is helpful, but I will definitely take this into consideration. I do have a couple of ideas for step-by-steps coming up. One of the things I'm actually working on is for a video for next week. I filmed the majority of it actually in Monet's garden in Giverny. And I just have to do the step-by-step, like at the painting table part tomorrow. And I'm going to take this into consideration. So thank you. Wasabi's awesome. Yes, don't forget to boop. Please don't forget. In fact, I'm going to go get him because it's a really nice time of day for him to hang out in the studio. You my stinker buddy. He's my stinker buddy. Here he comes. Here he comes. He's shedding. So he's mid-shed. You can see it on his tail. His tail's a different color. Wasabi time. Yes, go ahead and give this video a boop if you would be so kind. I know. Yeah. Hooked on closed captioning. And lucky for everybody, he already did his business today. So he will not be pooping on the painting table. So that's good. Dear buddy. And he thinks my nails are worms, especially this one, right, bud? He gets like freaked out because hornworms are this color. So he thinks my nails most days are worms. I know, Bubba. I know. We like this. We like a massage. We like a massage. Oh, he's such a good boy. Look at how beautiful and hydrated you are. You're such a good boy. Oh, he's warm too. He's very, very warm. Okay. Wow. I love this guy way too much. And a boop for Wasabi. All right. Let's see. I think, do we have another video question? This guy is so chill. We did Becky. We got Diane, Gwen. All right. Let's see what else we have. Maybe something here. We did that one. We did, oh yeah, what's this one? No, we did that one. What's this one? No, what are we doing? What's happening? We did that. Oh, this one. Creatively stuck. Yes, but much less than I used to. So let me explain. Way less than I used to. So I in the past, let's just say that. In the past, I found myself much more susceptible to that like frozen feeling. I feel like I want to sketch Wasabi while I'm doing this. That because I've never sketched him. This could be a real disaster, especially since it's a 3/4 view, dude. Trying to kill me. Oh, and then of course he shifts his head. Dude. So I was just much more susceptible to that perfectionism thing that I talk about so much, was so susceptible to it. And I'll tell you, that's the thing that can really mess us up. This is terrible. That can really mess us up. So first things first, I'm guessing that maybe your creative ruts might be built out of some perfectionism. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I could be dead wrong, but I am comfortable going out on that limb. So that being said, I would recommend developing some habits that combat perfectionism. Am I scaring you with my paint? Develop some anti-perfectionist habits. And that could be as simple as what I'm doing here, which is getting into a habit of not actually painting a finished painting, of just laying down color. And doing that maybe daily. It's almost like a creative protest, if you will, right? Like a creative protest. Like I am not going to paint something recognizable, representational every time I sit down. Sometimes I'm going to do this. And maybe you need to do it every morning for 2 minutes each morning, and do that for say a month and see how you feel. Because oftentimes it's that chase of the perfect, that chase of the good enough, that chase of the doing it right that trips you up in more ways than you would ever expect. Yeah, top down he does. Yeah, we could do a top down sobs. We could do a top down sobs. We could do a little sobs. Could do a little sobs. Top down. Top down. It's like, how do I get that stink eye he gives me all the time? I don't know. But then he smiles at me. And there's his ear ball. I don't know what an ear ball is, but this is fun. This is my orange sobs. My orange sobs. Anyhow, so yeah, get yourself some anti-perfectionist habits. built into your creative day. All right. I really think that could help you so much. Dude, it's still not right, but I don't care. I don't freaking care because it's fun. Drawing my wasabs, man. Drawing my wasabs. So yeah, get out of that need. Again, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, okay? So that I scare you. I'm making a lot of assumptions, but get out of that need to create finished art. And I've said it before, sometimes, and it sucks that we have to build new, that we have to commit to like building new habits. Oh, Wasabi, I am never going to draw you in a way that makes me happy, but the goofier, the better I get. Look at him looking at my painting. Yeah. Your eyeball's wrong. It's all wrong. Whatever. I don't even know. You look like a rhinoceros or something. Yeah. That's my best advice for getting out of a creative rut. And it really is more so advice to get in less of them. I took a little turn on that advice giving. Like, let's just get into less of them. Yeah. You need less of them. Buddy, could you turn your head? You're messing with my flow here, man. You're messing with my flow. Anyway, there's Sobs. He looks like he needs a chiropractor. I don't know what he understands. Probably not. He probably just thinks that it's all bugs. It's just like things for him to potentially eat. That's what I think he thinks is going on. I think I got all the questions today. Question. I'm struggling with getting too dark on the leaves of basil, sage, etc. Glazing. Yes. Okay. So the thing with glazing is to start sheer, light, glowy. Okay. So that's even too much. We're going to have to go bigger, spread that color around. But if it's a leaf, right? Start sheer, glowy, really light, even lighter. That's your color, what's up? That's your color, right? And the thing is, and this is where it gets annoying, is you're going to want to let that dry. And definitely don't go opaque. If you're glazing, stay away from Japanese watercolors. I mean, you know me, I'm not like a rule gal, but like you're gonna make your life harder if you're using more opaque paints. All right. So try to stay away from them. All right. So glazing, traditionally you would let this dry. Let's let that dry and then I'll show you. All right. Now, there's another way you can do things that will kind of keep you from getting that really blobby, dark thing, but without having to have as much patience. All right. Very just randomly, kind of haphazardly filled leaf, still starting with that yellow, but I'm grabbing some other stuff here, y'all, and I'm going right into it juicy. Right into it juicy, but not overdoing it, right? Still leaving some white spots, still leaving, yeah, not fully covering, leaving the yellow shining through. Now I'm going into green and I'm getting more syrupy, more like that creamer, right? So very different than glazing, y'all, but you're getting that kind of that luminous quality because the yellow is still shining through, right? Still shining through, but you don't have to wait for everything to dry. But, right? So fast and loose, luminosity in loosey-goosey painting. Now, traditional glazing. Now, this hasn't dried nearly long enough, in my opinion, but we should be able to give you an idea. You're going to go in with the next color and still sheer and light, but bring in some more. Maybe it's a shadow. Maybe it's a, yeah. Okay. And you can see that yellow shining through to give you that luminous quality, because up here there's less yellow shining through, but as I stroke down, more of the color paint got deposited, my water started running out, I'm getting that more sheerness down here, and that yellow is shining through. What are you doing? What are you doing? Sorry. Does that help? So when wanting paint to move, it should be creamy paint? Not necessarily, but creamy. Do you mean creamy? See, that's why I don't like the creamer analogy, because honestly, a paint that is creamy, I like to say syrupy. Let me show you. A paint that's creamy typically has white in it. This is why people have asked me over the years, why do you make up names for things? Why do you change the way you talk about things? Just use the traditional titles and the traditional ways. Because like creamer and tea and coffee, black coffee, and all that is the typical way to talk about water control. But I typically say syrupy, because when you have a lot of paint and less water on your brush and you apply that to a very wet surface, it's going to move more. Now that is brand dependent, formulation dependent, but because if like Holbeins, for example, don't move as much. Anything that doesn't have like a gum Arabic going on isn't going to move as much, regardless of how perfectly syrupy your application is. Sketches is correct, but the thick paint will still move as long as there's enough water on the page. Luminosity. Yeah, let me pull these back in. And the longer with traditional glazing, you want, sorry, what's up? You want to let those layers dry for as long as you can possibly stand it, so you don't disturb that first layer of color with the dampness of the second layer. Yeah, yeah. Paints with white in it, you're not good for glazing. You want sheer, you want very little, if you want those colors that are, you don't want to what's the paint rating about opacity? You just want your really sheer colors. Like Sennelier is a brand known for beautiful glazing because of their formulation. The pigments that they use are not naturally opaque. They're sheer. They're going to allow you to do that luminous buildup with glazing so much more effortlessly. Transparent paint, great for glazing. Exactly. Yes. Pastels, there's probably PW6, pigment white 6. I use that in my formulations a lot, but my paints also don't move as much, except for certain ones. My reds, my blues, my greens move. But anything with white in the formulation is not going to move as much. That's why a lot of the Holbeins don't move as much. One of the reasons. You got it. Darlene Strawberries. Yeah, I tried to give him a raspberry the other day and it went to waste. Say hi, Bubba. Say hi. He's just a good boy. All right, friends, it has been a blast today. Such a blast. Thank you so much. for being here, for asking me incredible questions. Thank you to Sketches for being, as always, an awesome mod, and Thrifty, of course. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was a blast. And I will be back next week with a live again, not traveling. Yay. And Wasabi says bye. Bye. Rababa. Yeah, bye. Shabai.